Hey, y'all. It's your travel bestie Kat. And we have a guest with us today. We're going to find out a little bit about him, and he's going to tell us some info about what it was like to be a BDM with Royal Caribbean.
So please join me in thanking Travis for joining us and say, welcome, Travis. We are so glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. My name's Travis. I'm originally from Miami, Florida. And after graduating from college there, I got a job with Royal Caribbean Cruises. And I kind of worked my way up from the call center to inside sales. And I became a field sales rep for Royal Caribbean from about 2016 to right up until COVID 2020. And so my job was to work directly with travel agents within a given geographic territory. So I started out living in St. Louis and then Kansas City, and I covered all of Kansas, Missouri, and some Southern Illinois, dealing with about 600 travel agents there, everything from big brick and mortar travel agencies to home-based travel agencies. And then I got to make a lateral move over to being based out of Nashville in 2019. And I did that all the way up until COVID. So I covered the whole state of Tennessee and a little bit of Kentucky. I dealt with about 450 travel agents from that territory. And then just recently, up from 2022 to 2023, I was a BDM for Sandals based out of Birmingham, Alabama. And I just did that for a short amount of time before relocating up here. So I have a pretty good understanding of the ins and outs that what travel agents have to deal with on a daily basis, basically.
Nice. So that does wrap it up, kind of letting them know what the role actually looks like for the BDM.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely get to wear a lot of hats. And as a BDM, what you're really doing is you're building a relationship with the travel partners, who the travel partners like yourself. You're the one that builds the relationships with all of your clientele and all the people that might be on the fence about using a travel agent, because with everything that's out there, as far as the internet, as far as AI, as far as everything that people think that they can do things on their own. I could tell you some horror stories, some things that I've realized, and some things that I've been through personally, where people will reach out to me and say, I should have used a travel agent because now I'm stranded here in London Heathrow Airport because I didn't know that I was supposed to go to a different airport to catch my, and you deal with those things, and it really just resonates with you. Why don't you use a travel agent? And I think a lot of people are unaware of the benefits of using a travel agent in today's day and age, because all the information is so accessible, you don't think it's that necessary, right? Is that what you've come across?
It is actually. And I'll meet people. I met a gentleman on a cruise, and he and his wife and I were all visiting, and he was like, yeah, I spent 7 hours on the phone the other day trying to work something out. And I was like, oh, and she was like, yeah, we're never doing that again. We're using you. I was like, yeah, what did we learn from that? Like, I wouldn't have spent 7 hours on the phone.
Yep.
I would have texted the BDM or called the back line for agents, and somebody would have called me back.
Yep.
Like, I wouldn't have sat on a hold for 7 hours.
Yeah. It's a lot of those things that you don't really realize, you don't really think about when that happens. And just something topical, something that's going on right now with everything that's going on in Venezuela, right? And when somebody booked their Sandals vacation to go down to Curacao, a year and a half ago, they wouldn't have thought that Venezuela would be up in arms right now. But there's a lot of people that can't get airfare down, in the Caribbean. And if they booked everything on their own, then they have to try to navigate this entire world of not understanding what's going to happen with the airlines and what's going to happen with foreign governments allowing airlines in there. And I mean, that's just a big headache that you don't have to go through. And if you had a travel agent that would be able to handle all that stuff for you, then you just, you're in a good spot there. But it's those things, the unforeseen things. It's not even like a hurricane that everybody knows a hurricane can come. Nobody was really expecting something like this. So I'm still in touch with a lot of travel partners, especially ones that do the like the Southern Caribbean, the South America, and they're dealing with a lot right now. But they're taking all that on for their clients and for the travel agent, and they're working directly with the travel agents to make it as pain-free as possible for the people who had something planned that's now kind of interrupted, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it affected Puerto Rico, Antigua, Curacao, so lots of little spots down there.
Yeah.
Now I have a Facebook group for a Virgin cruise that leaves out of Puerto Rico, and they were all losing their minds.
Yep.
They were like, oh, we're on the 23rd. And I'm like,
yep.
Be okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the elephant in the room. How did the industry change after 2020?
Well, I left the industry. I left the cruise side in 2020, and then when I came back in 2022, there was a much bigger emphasis on the cruise line, and also for sandals, for example, they did what's right for the customer. And from before, I want to say this the right way. I'm not going to say everything was really bottom line driven, but when something happens like the pandemic, it really shows you what a company is like, what their true intentions are, and how they're actually going to be there for you, And the companies that, Royal Caribbean, they were great in terms of bringing humanitarian aid to places that needed it. They were great in terms of retaining as many employees as they possibly could. They, and sandals as well. They still kept in contact. They made sure that they kept their staff on board, because they knew, not on board the ship specifically, but they kept their staff, their sales reps, and because they knew that there are travel agents still out there that are still depending on their point of contact in order to help their clients. So a company that, let's be honest, Royal Caribbean, they couldn't send ships out for years, and Sandals was kind of the same way. Realistically, it would make sense to, get rid of as much staff as you could, if they, I mean, in terms of a bottom line business, that would make sense. But they chose to not do that. They would rather take the hit, and they would rather keep those partnerships, because they knew it wasn't going to last forever. So they would rather take the hit short term. They'd rather retain their staff, and they'd rather keep their sales reps on board to make sure that they're travel agents who've been, a partner of theirs for years and years. The first hiccup that comes along, you can't just kick them out to the curb. If that would have happened, then you wouldn't have any business when things start to resume. So it really, I'd say things are generally back to normal now in terms of what they look like from before. But what it did was it weeded out a lot of people, a lot of travel agents that didn't really have a love for this, because when everything hits the fan, and you're not able to make a living off it the same way that you did from before. People who were kind of just in it to say, oh, I'm a quote unquote travel agent, just let me know if you're going to go on a trip and let me book it for you, so I get the credit for it, even though I didn't really do much. There was a lot of people like that they're not around anymore, you know but definitely not as much as there was. And dealing with those people, from my experience from before, it was like, okay, I know why you're here. I get it. If you can make a little extra money by having a friend say they're going to go on a trip that they were already going to go on, and you get credit for it, that's fine. But those were never really the people that actually made a big difference in my day-to-day life. They were never really the ones that said, hey, I have a great opportunity. I met this group that wants to do this and that. Can you help me curate something for them? Can you look out for these guys? Can you get us on board a ship to do a tour for the day before the ship goes out for the day? There's all these sorts of things that a partnership between a good travel agent and their BDM, can give to, people going out to go on their vacation and to build those memories that you really can't find trying to do this on your own.
You feel like those were some industry lessons that were learned during the shutdown that are still shaping it today then?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's ongoing, and the people that I still keep in contact with, they're saying that there's so many things that are different now, and I can't really speak to them because I have been out for a little bit, but just seeing everything how it was from before, and then my short time back in the industry, albeit over on the sandals side after the shutdown, it kind of ended. There's definitely a lot more safeguards in place. There's definitely, things that mimic what it was like from before, but the travel industry is always going to be changing. It's always going to be evolving, and there's always going to be things, especially from the cruise line side. Every cruise line operator is doing something new. They're doing something innovative because they see another cruise line investing $100 million into their private island. So everybody else is going to start doing that. And then they're going to start adding, sandals, for example. They're always constantly adding different properties, and they're buying up other properties from other, companies, and they're making that part of their portfolio. So it's always evolving and always changing. And that could be overwhelming sometimes for somebody who's trying to do that on their own. They're trying to find something that's going to be good for them and their vacation that they want to take. But where do you even start? It's kind of overwhelming. Off the top of my head, I know like 5 or 6 different cruise lines that you could choose, but which one would be best for families? Which one would be best for just me and my girlfriend if we are just trying to go for exactly. And a lot of people don't know that Virgin's only for adults. So sometimes if you have a family and you're trying to figure out something fun for your family, but you see Virgin looks like fun from what you see, on the commercials, you don't really know where to start, but somebody to help you navigate that's so important. And I don't think people understand how important it is until you're actually in there. And then it's kind of the only way I could kind of put this, kind of make an analogy for this with all these different streaming services on TV. You ever just sit there and you're just overwhelmed by the different amount of choices that you just kind of lose your mind? You're like, I just don't even know where to start. You got Hulu with this program, you got Netflix with this new show coming out, you got everything. And when you sit down, it's like, it's so overwhelming that you don't really know where to start. And then you spend the next 45 minutes just scrolling through stuff, trying to figure something out. And then, you don't really, it would be so much better if somebody could just kind of curate something for you. Does that make sense? And that's a lot of what you do, right?
I feel like, yeah, that's what the travel agent does. We ask the questions to kind of be the guide, guru, figure out what whispers to you, like what's the right line. Like if you did have kids and they were teens or tweens, I'd probably say Royal Caribbean.
Mhm.
They have all the bells and whistles
Yep.
to make all that age group happy, right? You
Mhm.
can zip line, you can bumper car, you can ice skate, you can,
Yeah.
do all the fun things. If they're a little bit younger, maybe Disney.
Disney. Mhm.
Yeah, because they're top shelf. I mean, they
Mhm.
do everything
Yep.
right, from the restaurant, people coming with you to every restaurant, getting to know. Like, I remember when we went and the kids were little, ketchup is a food group at our house.
Yeah.
They figured that out right away, first
Mhm.
night. Next night we showed up, every kid had ketchup.
Yep.
And I was like, bless you.
Yeah.
Like,
And I've heard about Disney. They keep their ships like in impeccable shape. Like every 15 minutes, they make sure somebody's out at the pool deck to make sure that there's no puddles that are around. It's just the level of detail that goes into it is insane. And what we used to judge by back when I was with Royal Caribbean is a net promoter score, where you kind of net promoter score. It's essentially what the consumers, in terms of feedback, what they have to say about a certain brand. And Disney was always at the top when it came to that sort of thing. So, but again, it's somebody who isn't in this industry and not understanding this. I'll tell you what, one of the biggest nightmares logistically that I had to deal with was trying to arrange one-on-ones like what we're doing now back when I was a BDM with a travel agent, because they're always either on board one of the ships or they're always at one of the locations or they're always on site at one of the Sandals resorts. They're actually experiencing the environment. And that's great because you can look online. You could obviously everywhere online, they're going to say, oh, yeah, this is great. This is great. But you're not actually going to get that real, I've actually been there. This was my experience. This is what I see. You would enjoy about this. But I was also at this location. And this is why I think this would be better for you. And that's what you can provide that you could plug it into Chat GPT all day. It's not going to tell you something like that. It's
exactly. And even like going back to Virgin and comparing Disney, like people always ask, like, we did do Disney with our kids, and now that they're grown, we wanted to go do Virgin. Will we like it? I'm like, absolutely. I was like, honestly, the CEO of Disney Cruise Line came over and is the CEO of Virgin,
Mhm.
and they're very Disney trained in the fact that they want to make you happy. The cruise is amazing. So, like, if you're on board either of those ships and not having a good time, you chose that.
Yeah. And trust me, I mean, what I said from before, that you're always going to have some retractors. When I started out with Royal Caribbean, I started out at basically it's the complaint center. It's called the post-cruise correspondence. When somebody gets off their ship and they get to call Travis and they get to talk about everything that went wrong. And I mean, you could tell this guy just got on the ship and said, I'm going to do everything in my power to find something negative about everything. So everything from, oh, well, I thought that, the dinner on the first night, I thought the waiter was a little bit rude. And then my stateroom attendant didn't talk to me 18 times on the first day, only 16. So yeah, I'm demanding a free cruise as compensation, or else I'm going to go on a cruisecritic.com and I'm going to trash you guys, especially you, Travis, for not compensating me. So there's always going to be people like that. There's no way you're going to have like 100%, but overwhelming. Yeah. People love Virgin Voyages, and Virgin Voyages hasn't been around that long. They've only been around for about 4 or 5 years. So the fact that, yeah, the fact that they've made such a big impact in such a short amount of time, it shows that they tapped into something that was sorely needed in the cruise industry. And that was something adults only, something that was fun oriented, something great for adults, young adults. I mean, just adults of, I mean, what do they have? They have like the pajama parties on. Yeah. Yeah. And they have,
It's cute. Like
yeah.
my daughter and I went on an agent cruise with Virgin, and they still had all the things so
Mhm.
you could experience it. And they did the pajama night, and she loves Chick-fil-A.
Mhm.
So I ordered us Chick-fil-A pajamas.
Yep.
We were such a hit. We were
Oh,
in
yeah.
like 80 people's photos.
Mhm.
One girl was like, she stopped us dead and she was like, I'm a manager. Or like, jump in, girl.
That's awesome.
So we're probably on some Chick-fil-A
Mhm.
website
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing about Virgin is kind of like edgy, where they also we talked about this a couple days ago. You got a tattoo on board the ship, right? That's so cool. And she showed me. I'm sure that if you follow her on Facebook, you'll be able to see the tattoo. But yeah, just certain things like that, you would have never expected that to be on board a cruise. I mean, thinking about cruises from 20, 30 years ago, cruises were generally, you thought it was kind of for old people, and it was just kind of, you just get fat, you just lay around, and yeah, that's it.
Yep.
But I mean, there's so much stuff to do. And again, like we talked about earlier, it's just ever evolving. And it's so interesting to be part of that now. And especially if you're in the market for you want to experience something like that. I mean, you have the relationships you said with Virgin Voyages, and you have relationships with other cruise line reps, and you have
Yeah.
and land operators as well.
Mhm.
So it's awesome to be in that position where you can really provide your customers that sort of insight and that sort of firsthand insight,
Yeah. It's wonderful to be that connected. What do you think the first time cruisers worry about the most?
First time cruisers, what they were, I can't tell you how many times people have said, I'm weird about going on a cruise because I watched the movie Titanic. And it's so ridiculous. It's like the Titanic was a ship that was literally smaller than anything that's out there right now. Where there's so many more safeguards in place. They do a muster drill at the beginning of every sailing to make sure everybody knows where to go. There's never been an issue like that ever since. It's just funny how people refer back to something that happened over 100 years ago. That
Speaking of those muster drills, I've been on all different ships. It's connected, right, to the
Mhm.
apps. Like if you don't check in,
Yeah.
they know.
Oh, yeah, yeah, they will find you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're not yeah, you can't really skip that, They make sure, everything is, smart ship, coordinated now so they can find out where you are. But in addition to that, sometimes people, they think, "I don't wanna get seasick," but you gotta realize you're not necessarily on a little boat. You're on a ship that holds 6,000 people. You're not gonna feel that thing swaying, if
Yeah.
at all, you know?
I've only ever once felt an emotion
Mm.
that was, whoa,
Yep.
hold on to something. And that was honestly during hurricane season. And there was a hurricane, and we were on a Disney ship. They turned out run it.
Mm.
And we did have a little motion,
Yeah.
but honestly, it still wasn't bad.
Yeah, it's definitely not what if you think you're on like a fishing boat, the swaying that you get from that, you're not going to feel that on one of these large ships, like one of these Oasis class ships or these Icon class ships for Royal Caribbean. That's another thing people are concerned about. They say I don't want to feel like I'm crowded, but they have it spaced out in such a way. They have for the Oasis class, they have different neighborhoods. They have like 7 different distinct neighborhoods, and everything flows in such a way that you never feel bottlenecked anywhere. There's like 20 or 30 different restaurants on board, not including the main dining room. So if you're ever, you don't want to be in the main dining room, you can get dinner, lunch, breakfast, basically anywhere else. It's so cool that the way that they have it set up. And a lot of people, they just don't understand that there's been so much that's been put into these sort of, I don't want to say pain points, but these issues that people might have with cruising. I don't want to feel crowded. I don't want to feel like seasick, but they put all these safeguards in place to make sure that those are addressed. So when people do go on board, they're like, oh, okay, I was worried about nothing. I had a great time. I actually want to do this again. And that's why so many people end up booking their next vacation on board while they're actually on the ship, because they're saying, oh, I don't want this to end, but I have to get off. I can't just stay on, but I'd like to do this again. So they
Yeah.
just end up booking on board.
And I've been on a sold out ship before, and they don't feel crowded.
They don't.
We didn't struggle to get a seat by the pool or anything. So
Yeah.
I'm like, don't even worry about it.
Yeah.
It's not a thing.
Mhm.
Ski day or port day?
Depends on where you are. If it's a port day and you're over in Nassau, anybody who's been cruising for a while, yeah, you can go, you can get off the ship at Nassau and you can go to Senior Frogs and have a good time over there. But you can only go to Senior Frogs enough times until it gets to a point. Sea Day, there's a lot of really cool stuff to do. I mean, if it's me, there's so much on board a ship that you don't get to see. Even if you tried to see everything, if you tried to go to every restaurant, if you tried to go see every show, there's still so much that you really have to push in order to see. So I think that's why the sea days are so important, because when you do get to a port that you want to get off the ship at, yeah, I'd say it's the private island, perfect day at Coco Cay for Royal Caribbean, for example. Once you get off the ship there, yeah, that's an actual destination within itself. But the ship itself is a destination too, when you really think about it. So when you have that sea day and you really have that time dedicated to where you can see everything that you otherwise wouldn't get to go see. So I'd say probably a sea day, because the ship has so much to offer that you wouldn't necessarily get to go to if you were always at a port every single day.
And they schedule fun classes too.
Yeah,
Like I learned how to make a paracord bracelet.
that's cool. Yeah. There's a lot of really cool stuff, and you see that every night. I mean, online they have like a daily planner where it's connected through the app for all these cruise lines, where you're able to like book your entertainment, you're able to book your activities for the day. You can see which activities are happening around you, and then you can reserve spots there. It's so well integrated there. So anything that you want to be able to check out, you'll have the opportunity to do so. So it's really cool the way that they have everything set up.
Picking a room, are you a balcony or an insider?
Oh, that's the thing. I used to be an insider before I had a balcony, before I ever got a chance to get in a balcony. But then once you get in the balcony, it's so hard to get back into, I guess it's kind of like going first class when you fly, once you get that taste of first class, you're like, it's kind of hard to go back. So back when I was as a rep, a lot of times we'd have sales meetings on board the ships. And look, they took really good care of us, but they're not necessarily giving all the employees balconies. They're putting us in inside rooms. They're saving the balconies for the paying customers to enjoy. But every now and then we'd get the opportunity to be in a balcony, and those were great. And especially a balcony is something you don't want to that you do want to splurge on, especially if you're in like Alaska, because then it's really the scenery that's going to get you. You're not out there at the pool for Alaska. You're there to get taking the scenery, especially when you're going through the inside passage and all these really awesome sites. That's when you want a balcony, and you don't want to be stuck inside, or you don't want to be stuck in a public area, even though, again, it's not going to be crowded. You're still going to have space to yourself, but it's just really nice to have your own room and just to be able to take in the sights in that way. What about you? What do you think?
I do love a balcony.
Yeah.
But I also don't mind a room with just a window either.
Yeah.
I know our very, very first cruise ever, I was really, really scared about having a balcony when the kids were little. So we got a window room. And then I realized, for you learn, you live and learn. I wasn't an agent then, that you can lock it up top, and they wouldn't have been able to open it. But I had a couple of them that walked and talked in their sleep.
Yep.
So I was just really scared.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, and if I'd had a travel agent, they probably would have told me that.
But but again, that's why you go experience these things. And that's why you're the firsthand person that actually goes. I mean, to be honest, I'm 6'2". I would have to commit to falling over a railing, So when people say, "Oh, I think it's dangerous," it's like, I don't know. You're gonna have to try to get over that railing if you're really worried about it. So it's again, it's not something to worry about. But I understand why people do worry about it, and again, that's why it's so important to have someone like you.
Mega ship or small ship?
Well, the good thing about small ships is small ships can get into destinations where the big mega ships can't. So one of the cool little ports is Key West, for example, or back when they were sailing to Cuba. You couldn't get a big Oasis class ship into those ports. That's why those small ships were so important. And that's why Royal Caribbean brought back some of those small ships and kind of refurbished them for those Cuba sailings and for those unique destinations that you weren't otherwise able to get into. So it really depends on what you're going for. If you're going for something really unique like that, you have to go with small ship. And the cool thing, I can only really speak for Royal Caribbean, but I'm sure other cruise lines are doing this. You never feel like you're on an old ship with some of these smaller ships, because they reinvest so much money, maybe every 6, 7, or 8 years, into making the small ships feel like they're updated, and they have all the cool bells and whistles that you see online, that you see on TV, that you see in all the commercials. Because you never really want to try a cruise line for the first time, get on there and say, this is nothing like what I saw on TV. Everything is old, outdated, and but they say, oh well, those are only for the long 7-night cruises. We want you to come back on those. So I would have to say small ship if I'm going for a destination-oriented sailing. But outside of that, there's so many cool things on these large ships, on the Oasis class ships, on the Icon class ships.
Okay, so what's a cruise myth you'd love to bust?
Cruise myth. I'd love to bust the well, I could tell you from the cruise industry, the biggest myth that people think is that you pay more using a travel agent to book your cruise because obviously you're paying a person to perform a service, which is to handle your cruise. But from somebody who's been the Royal Caribbean sales rep for 5 years and then sandals for a year, I'll tell you this: you do not pay any more to use a travel agent than you would going direct. But I'll take it a step further. By going through a travel agent, they have access to certain exclusive sales deals, additional onboard credit or additional spend on site at a resort that you don't get access to by doing it direct. And it's because of the relationship that you have with those sales reps, and you're able to work those things out with the sales rep, and they're able to add on additional things. And so many people, especially in tipping culture today, you expect there to be an additional cost with dealing with a person. That's why people are kind of fed up with tipping culture, and the people understand that I don't want to have all these extra things added on. I just like to do it myself. But again, you pay nothing more to have a travel agent take all the headaches away from the ins and outs of your booking that you would doing it on your own. If anything, you're going to save money, you're going to get additional value, you're going to have less of a hassle, and if anything happens, you have an advocate that has direct contact with that sales rep for that company that can handle whatever issue comes up, whether that's, hey, family emergency happened. We can't go on this sailing, but we need to move it. Can we make that happen? If you did this direct, you're not going to have a lot of luck getting that done. But I could tell you there's so many times that I've gone out of my way to make that happen for a travel agent's customer because I built up such a great relationship with that travel agent. The same way that you built up these relationships with all these vendors that you work with, that's the real benefit of going through someone like you, because not only do you add additional value at no extra cost, it's for all those unforeseen and unknowns that come up. So that's the biggest myth, I'd have to say.
And if someone's on the fence about using a travel agent or cruising, what's one thing you'd want them to know?
And again, it doesn't cost anything extra. You're going to have an advocate in you yourself. You're going to have an advocate in you yourself that's going to help navigate the ins and outs. So in addition to it not costing you anything extra, you have an actual physical person that is your advocate for anything that could go wrong. And that's something that you don't have by doing this on your own, by going direct, by thinking that you could save a little bit of money just by doing it on your own, which again, like we've already said, it doesn't work that way. You're going to pay the exact same amount of money with a travel agent as opposed to not. So it comes down to, why would you not want that extra stability? Why would you not want that extra advocate? Why would you not want that person that knows the ins and outs of the whole travel business that could be there for you in the middle of the night if you miss it, if you miss a transfer to an airport, if a flight gets delayed, if you need to downline over to a next port of call, if something like that happens and you're on your own, good luck trying to navigate that on your own. So
Because Expedia will not take your call.
nope. And if your idea of a fun Saturday while you're at an airport is staying on customer service for a couple hours trying to get through to somebody, that's good for you, but that's not the type of fun that I'm interested in having. So again, if you're on the fence about it, just go ahead and reach out to Kat, let her know, hey, this is kind of what I have in mind. This is what I'm seeing online. What can you do for me? I guarantee you she will take great care of you. Not only because she knows what she's doing, she's very good at this, but because she also has the relationships built with the people in the industry, the sales reps, like what I was, and the people that are currently in those roles now, that she knows the most up-to-date information, that she knows all the sales, all the benefits. I'm sure there's been plenty of times where, a sale will come along. You'll have somebody already booked, and then a sale will come along that could actually give them a better price on their cruise or on their vacation, and you'll be able to go ahead and switch them over to that. So they're always going to be certain that they have the best deal out there. And that's something that you would have to on your own. Yeah. Something that we see a lot is somebody they'll have a vacation booked and they'll book under this big promotion that they saw, and then in about 2 weeks, there'll be an even bigger sale, a bigger promotion. And somebody will say, well, dang, maybe I should have just waited because now I'm locked into this price. But something that you do is that you keep track of all those sailings and you keep track of all those price promotions, and you actually get your customers, people that are booked with you, those better rates without even them having to ask. You'll reach out to them and you'll say, hey, I saw that there was a different promotion out there. So I just threw your booking in there and I saw that there was a price difference. So, we actually took about $100 off your sailing, you know, boom. And I just got that set for you. If you book this on your own, you would have had to see that sale on TV or on the internet. You would have had to go plug your own booking in. You would have had to go reach out to somebody with Royal Caribbean directly. And you would have had to say, hey, can you see if and this is so much effort for the same price that you would be paying if you would have just gone with you, who just does that proactively on your own. So if that's another reason to go with someone like you, perfect. You know that you're always going to be in the best position financially to make sure that you're going to get the best price out there, the best value, the best price.
This is wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it so much.
Thank you. Do you have any sort of certain sales right now or certain promotions or anything that you want to plug with anybody?
We have a really good deal right now for a 2027 Virgin cruise. It's 10 nights in Cairo.
Yeah.
We've got an overnight, and we're about $1,000 less than the online price. Plus, we have $500 in onboard credit with your bar tab, and the tips are included. Virgin just changed all that around a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
But that's $1,000 less now. And you said that was 2027.
Yeah.
So yeah, that price difference is only going to get bigger. So if anybody's listening to this, if you're interested, the best thing to do is to reach out now, because that price difference is only going to get bigger.
Yeah, because they surge price.
Yep.
So it's only going up, and it's been really popular. I think everybody was so excited. They've never done that before.
Nope.
And what the heck, an overnight in Cairo? I'm going to book it.
That's really unique. That's not just a regular Eastern or Western Caribbean. That's something really cool, really unique. So if you're looking to build some memories and to have, like a trip of a lifetime, that sounds like it right there.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
Well, you have a beautiful day.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
And I just want to thank Travis again for coming on and sharing his time with us and giving us a little perspective and some more information. Like, follow, and share, you guys. Kat, your travel BFF, is here to help you with all of your travel. Have a beautiful day.